Hello everyone, welcome back to Powerful Nothing and Magic the Gathering Cube podcast. I'm your host Dan, and as always, I'm joined by James. James, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We are checking in on one of our favourites today, the Arena Powered Cube.
Yeah, that's it. It's definitely had a massive impact on Cube, just in terms of the number of people playing it. It's just brought more eyes to the world of Cube, which is always fantastic. So yeah, we're going to do a quick check-in because the latest season has just ended. We're going to have a look at how it's been and what they've done to balance things and what they've changed. Before we get into our main topic, a couple of quick bits up top. Firstly, if you're enjoying Powerful Nothing, please consider giving the podcast a 5-star review, a like, tell a friend. All that good stuff greatly helps us out. Also, there will be timecodes down below if there's a specific thing you want to jump straight to. And also, there will also be a link to a card gallery down below. We do try and read out every card as we go, but in case we don't, there will be a card gallery so you can follow along and see all the nice pretty pictures as we're going. Oh, and also, obviously, there'll be a link to the YouTube version if you want to watch in glorious 1080p, because my computer can't do 4K yet. Marvellous. But let's jump in and let's have a look again and touch base with the Arena Powered Cube. So this arrived on Arena last year, and I think the general consensus and feedback is that everyone liked it. Everyone thought it was good. And yeah, as I touched on, it was just great at bringing Cube to a whole new audience because there isn't the barrier to entry of specifically Mitgo or knowing someone who owns a cube or building a cube yourself. So just in terms of accessibility, it would just busted the doors open, and so many more people have been able to get their hands on Cube, which is great. We just finished our 3rd season, and this is the episode where we're going to touch base and see where we are. James, I know that you've played a lot of the Arena Cube. Just as an overview, like, how do you think the Powered Cube has been doing since it's been first introduced on Arena?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I think it's been on a little bit of a journey. So last time we talked about this was just after it had done its first run on Arena, and it was still fun, but there were some pretty serious balance issues going on. I think Boros was drafted sort of as much as all the other colour pairs combined, if you looked at the 17 lands data, which isn't super healthy, and was winning a ton. And, you know, Boros has been good in Powered Cubes forever. That's not new, but it sort of had so much redundancy, and like every slot on the curve, it just kind of had all the bangers, and the combo decks that could play on it were missing some pretty key pieces from what you might see in sort of paper Powered Cubes or from the Magic Online version, and that led in Season 1 to Boros just being kind of stupidly overpowered. It wasn't like you couldn't win playing anything else, but you did just play against it so much in that first season. It felt like, you know, you'd do one of the 7-round leagues and you'd play against Boros like 4 or 5 times, you know, which isn't super fun. So from that start point, they've certainly made some changes to try and redress that, which has been pretty good to see, actually. I think it is moving in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, which tertiary white rare from the last Ixalan set was it that was ridiculously high up the power rankings?
Oh god, yeah, like Sanguine Evangelist was something like the 3rd highest win rate card in the cube over all the Moxen and stuff like this, you know.
Yeah, perfectly like fine Magic card, but just not one you expect to see above like Time Walk, for example, in terms of like win rate. But yeah, but I think that shows us more on the first iteration. Yeah, part of it was they were still working out what worked for Arena, and part of it was working with the card availability. Like some of the more combo cards are, by their nature, harder to code onto Arena, basically. So I don't think it was surprising we didn't have as many of the more broken cards on there at launch. Because also, another part of it as well is a lot of the cards that we're talking about in this Boros deck are cards that were on Arena already, cards that have been printed, because most of them have been printed in the last couple of years as well. And there's just so much redundancy with them, which is why I think it was one of the reasons we discussed in a previous episode. It was just a bit of a menace, was because a pod of 8 could support 2 very good Boros decks.
Yeah, for sure. And the missing combo cards, it wasn't so much we didn't have the busted cards, it was the combo decks didn't have a lot of their redundancy. So it was things like we had Sneak Attack, but we didn't have Through the Breach because they didn't want to put Splice into Arcane on Arena for whatever. Fair enough, that mechanic's nonsense. But when you only have one way to cheat in your sneak target, you do actually feel that, like Through the Breach is a lot worse, but actually only having one of those effects in the cube does make that archetype a lot weaker, I think. Similarly with the reanimation stuff, we're missing Corpse Dance and Shallow Grave because they didn't want to put Graveyard Order into Arena, which, by the way, I think makes total sense that if they put the Graveyard Order on, then whenever you put a bunch of cards in the graveyard, you have to pick what order they go in. That's not a good user experience, good decision. But it does affect the cube missing those cards.
No, exactly. It's one of the things that just this is the Arena client, this is what we are dealing with. I guess as well, though, what other major changes have we seen since Season 1, James?
Yeah, so they've made a pretty big effort to rein in the power level of Boros, which I think has been pretty successful. So they've cut some of the real sort of heavy hitters of the Boros deck. So Gut is gone, Broadside Bombardiers is gone, Forfalingus is gone, there's no Guide of Souls. And they've replaced them with, in part, just slightly more toned down Boros cards, but also they've used some of those slots to support other archetypes, which means that Boros is missing a bit of the power level it had and missing a bit of the redundancy it had, which is both really important. And I think the end of it's not to say that you can't have brilliant Boros decks. You still can. It's still one of the most winning archetypes, but you probably can't be fighting with 2 other people at the table for Boros and have a good deck, which is a much healthier place for the cube.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things where, I don't think anyone is... If someone has the nutso version of the deck and they beat you with it, it's kind of like, cool, well done, you drafted what was open in your seat, nailed it. It's when you're being beaten down by the second and third choice options in a deck and it's still putting up numbers, that's when it's a bit... That's when it's problematic, and I'm not surprised that it was one of the main takeaways. It was one of the main things that everyone was talking about after the first cube. And the feedback from the first run was if you took out the Boros part, was overwhelmingly positive. It's just the conversation about Boros was so big because it did affect people's enjoyment of it, because it was do I want to come it's vintage cube, I can do the weird storm thing, or I can do the big reanimator thing. But when there's a correct decision to do something else, that does take away the enjoyment of it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from the way I engage with it, right, it's I'm actually okay, consciously throwing away a little bit of win equity to do the cool thing. That's fine. I have put Eureka in my deck more often than I would have done if I was going fully optimal. I'll admit that's fine. I'm okay with it. But you don't want to feel like you're just being a complete idiot and there's no upside, right? You want to feel like you're in the games when you're doing your nonsense, and if you're trying to go draft optimally and draft the hard way, you want to feel like there are still decisions, And it got to a point where you were just playing against Boros so much that you were making all of your draft decisions and all of your deck building decisions with, assumption that they were going 1-drop into 2-drop most games, which does just make you engage with a format like Vintage Cube very differently. So I think it's nice to change it up.
No, I'd agree. And I can just see from the list that there have been, it's not just removing redundancy in Boros creatures. It looks like they've just added more removal and interaction as well into some of the other colors. Since the first edition, we've lost cards like Murderous Cut and Wrath of God, but we've added cards like Skyclave Apparition, Heartless Act, Tragic Trajectory, Bone Crusher Giant, Sear, and Dam. And like, that's a very classic. Like, I've done that a bunch of time in my cubes of like, oh, aggro's too good. Here's some removal. Like, do you think that's another kind of dial they've turned with this, James?
Yeah, for sure. And it's having the right removal as well, right? It's having that cheap removal that can nullify the early threat from Boros. Yeah, and I think they've taken a pretty good approach to this. And Boros is, if you look at the stats, Boros is still actually the most winning color combination. But it is now within normal levels and drafted a normal amount of the time. Like, and when you looked at the numbers from season 1, they were absurd. The numbers from season 2 were still pretty high, actually. Season 3, they look much more reasonable. So yeah, I think this is a win for the cube curators here for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, it's from the way you've described it. Again, I like when I play cube. I like being able to do different things, and I like being able to try, like having the opportunity to try new things and not just be run over. Because there's a world where it would have been different if it was a combo deck that won on turn 4 or 5, because at least then it's like, ooh, how am I going to interact with this? Is it counter magic? Is it hand attack? Do I race them? But because it's the deck that kills you super quickly, it's not like you're like, there's a world where you just don't really get to play a game of Magic as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's quite hard to really attack Boros in because they grind so well, it's not like it's you kill the first 2 threats and they're out of it. It's like you killed the first 2 threats, so you got to engage in this game,
Yeah.
You still have a game to win and they can still do well in that game. I think like it wasn't not fun to play that cube, but it was like I wouldn't have wanted to keep playing it if it was the same in the second season, because it's kind of like if it was just a booster draft format, right? Like the really quick booster draft formats are still quite fun when you're figuring it out, right? You're sort of figuring out the rules of a format, what you need to do to succeed. And you didn't just have to draft Boros in season 1 to succeed, but you had to really highly prioritize answering Boros's threats if that wasn't the avenue you were going down. And that's fine for a bit, but then it was like, it kind of felt like we got to the point where you'd figured out what you needed to do to win in this format, and it was a little bit solved, So I think we have had a big dynamic change since then. And there's a lot more variety in what you can expect to play against now, which is really good.
No, that does sound all really positive. Cool. So that's the Boros side of things, but there's been a bunch of other changes as well. Kind of, James, are there any other, like, what else stands out to you in terms of decks or archetypes that have kind of been given a bit of a boost or a shake up?
Yeah, so I've been trying a few different things. I think green is sort of a colour that's probably been in flux for most. And this is not a new thing because green is generally the weakest colour these days in sort of powered cube. And they've tried a few different things with it. One thing they seem to have lent into in the most recent version, which is interesting, is Channel as a card. They've gone for a lot more big colourless threats. Even down to some of the kind of questionable ones. We've got a Summon Bahamut in there and a Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, which is kind of a cool approach. I'm here for Channel. It's one of those cards which used to be like one of the sort of hallmark busted things you could do in Powered Cube, right? And it's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit. So it's good to see them give it another go. I think part of the issue is that a lot of the stuff they've added is kind of hard to justify outside of a Channel deck, which makes it a little bit narrow. Like stuff like Summon Bahamut and Nulamog are just not quite good enough to be worth reanimating or sneaking in, really. I guess Ulamog, you get 20 cards from their library when you sneak it in, but that's, they can still kill you from there. So,
but I guess that falls into the lack of redundancy on sneak attack, though, is kind of the issue with that. Like, so there is, I guess, show and tell as well. If you're fine untapping, I guess Summon Bahamut doesn't feel as bad show and telling in, because you can answer the thing that they put in, I guess, and then you have a 9/9.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do that. I find a lot of the time the thing they show and tell in answers the thing I show and tell in, and we just both have nothing, but I spend my time casting a show and tell, Yeah, I'm a little bit suspicious of show and tell outside of cards which let you win that turn. So I like sort of show and tell Bolos' Citadel, for example, I think can be quite good, because with my Citadel deck, I can try and win right now, right? I don't need to untap. I don't like generally show and tell in my creature, hope I untap with my creature. Like, it is a bit better if you get the Vindicate on the way in, as you say, but I think it's generally I'd still rather not, I do think those green cheaty decks are kind of missing Oath of Druids, which I guess is maybe just too hard to put on Arena. It doesn't inherently care about sort of graveyard order or anything, but it is just a very unusual card. So maybe it's just tricky for them to program.
Yeah, it doesn't inherently break the game that they have made on Arena. I guess it's a lot of... No, you know what? I think Oath of Druids would be fine. I'll read Oath of Druids for those unaware, and then we'll try and work out as I'm reading it where the pain point is. There's 1 green for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses target player who controls more creatures than they do and is their opponent. The first player may reveal cards on the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. If the first player does, that player puts the cards onto the battlefield and all other cards revealed this way into their graveyard. That is the errated version. Yeah, it's a word. It's a card that's very easy to explain what it does, but the wording of the card is a little bit finicky, if that makes sense. Is finicky a word?
Yeah, I think finicky is a word.
It is now.
Yes, I mean, it's not a card they would be printing in 2026 for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's really cool, and it adds. It's one of those cards where for 1 card slot you add sort of a whole new archetype to the cube, right? And that's really cool.
I guess the other one for colorless decks might just be I know everything we have said about show and tell, but just Eureka being another one seems like a doable option. Like Eureka is effectively another show and tell. It lets you put things into play from your hand.
Yeah, Eureka's sick. It's but the thing is with Eureka is you really don't win that much if you try and draft Eureka too much in Powered Cube, I think it because before that's just got so quick these days. But when it works, I think it's like one of the sweetest things you can do.
Yeah, it's just in my head. If that's what we're supporting in green, really support it, I guess, because like as we talked about a bunch on this podcast, like green has struggled, and like it's if you're going to do the big cheaty thing, you need to commit to it for it to even get even close. I think is kind of where I'm coming from it at.
Yeah. No, I do agree. Yeah, I think maybe they should try Eureka. I think it would be cool. It's very good, actually. It got a lot better when they printed Vaultborn Tyrant, because the Tyrant, you put it in first, and then you put in your other big stuff, and you get triggers on all of them from the Tyrant. So you're like up a bunch of cards in life, which is quite good. Yeah, they tried some different green cheaty cards. They tried Aladamri Corvectal is how I'm going to try and say that.
This is another Modern Horizons 3 card that I don't think we probably reviewed this one.
I remember talking about Modern Horizons 3 for just hours and hours and hours, so I assume we talked about it. It's a card I'd honestly forgotten existed, though, and I think it's kind of cool. So this is 1 green for a 3/3 legendary creature elf warrior. You can look at the top card of your library at any time. You can cast creature spells from the top, but crucially it has green and tap 2 untapped creatures you control. Reveal a card from the land or the top of your library. If you reveal a creature this way, put it onto the battlefield. Activate only during your turn.
That's pretty cool.
I think it's kind of sick. But probably for a different cube, I think it is just a bit too weak for something like Powered Cube. But it was one of those cards where I saw it on the list and I was like, oh, I might try that in some other cubes, actually. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely a cool card. My gut is it was already programmed onto Arena.
Sure, yeah.
So it was available. But yeah, that does seem like a card. And like, it's, yes, okay, we don't have Eureka, but like, they have at least looked in the folder and seen what else can we do. So it is nice they are trying to give us something there. What else has happened to green, James? There seems to be a hell of a lot of earthbending in this cube now.
Yeah, they've kind of lent into it, which is cool. Because the interaction between earthbending and fetch lands and even stuff like strip mine and wasteland is really good, right? Because you turn your land into a creature, you sack it, and then because how earthbending works, the land comes right back. So they put in Badger Mole Cub, which I think is kind of an auto-include, and I think you mentioned has really good stats, actually, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's the top performing... according to 17 lands, in terms of win rate in hand, so either in opener or drawn, it is the top performing green card.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, every time it's been in play, it's been quite impressive against me, I will say. But they've really lent into the earthbending stuff with some extra earthbending cards. They've got Earthbender's Ascension, which is the 2 and a green enchantment. And when at ETBs, you earthbend 2 and search your library for a basic, put it onto the battlefield, and landfall, put a quest counter on it. When it has 4 or more quest counters on it, put a creature on something. This is fine. It's it does a lot. But you are paying you're paying quite a lot to not affect the board very much, right? Is the problem. But if you're leaning into like a bit more landfall-y stuff or doing the earthbend onto my strip mine thing, I could see it getting there. Boomy Unleashed is an interesting one as well. I'm not sure we actually talked about this card when we did the Avatar set review. So this is 3 red and a green for a legendary creature with some creature types. It's a 5/4 trample. When it ETBs, you earthbend 4. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you untap all your lands. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Only land creatures can attack during that phase. So this card is, it's 5 mana, which is not a mana cost we like. But when it lives, it is really scary, actually. Like, when you ramp this out quickly, it is... You've got to kill that thing, you know? Because that extra combat save, it's not just I get in another 4 damage with my earthbended land. It's also I get all my mana back. It's you can have some really explosive turns with that card. So I kind of like these as taking some shots. I think they have good upside, even if they aren't the absolute home runs on raw efficiency, which we often look for in Powered Cube.
No, that's cool. Again, yeah, we are still trying to find what to do in green to an extent. So yes, and like, I'm personally fine with them trying something cool with some new with some of the new cards we have available to them. Like I think generally we were all quite high on earthbending as a mechanic, and if it's playing well, finding more ways of adding it in, then I'm kind of here for. Also in green, I did notice that there appears to be a bit of a changing of the guard in terms of or what I have considered to be like classic staple green cards. Kind of like we've seen cards like Scavenging Ooze come out, cards like Reclamation Sage come out, and like other green utility cards like Cankerbloom, and even like Nissa Ascended Animist, more of a big green payoff, but could remove artifacts and enchantments. And instead we've got things like Heritage Reclamation, which is a instant destroy artifact or enchantment or exile a card from a graveyard, and Scrap Shooter, which is like a beefier Rec Sage with gift a card in order to get the Rec Sage effect. Kind of like, is that just where green utility is now? Like, am I just being a bit too boomery with my? There's no Rec Sage, right? Like, it's not a cube. Like, or is this just where we are in terms of like ones? Like, I can see the instant one. Like we still have an instant speed way of interacting with artifacts and enchantments, and we have a bit of green beef. Like the scrap shooter isn't one I've really seen before. Actually, I'll read it out just because it was new to me. 1 green 4/4 creature type raccoon archer. So obvious. So little hint that was from
Bloombo.
Thank you, James. It has gift a card, which is you may promise an opponent to gift a gift as you cast a spell. If you do, when it enters, they draw a card. It has reach, and it has when it enters, if the gift is promised, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. So it's just yes, they get a card, but you get some beef down. Like is this what we're doing with green now? Like, is this where green is, or do you think it will swing back the other way?
So I think part of the thing that is maybe guiding some of these choices for Arena Cube specifically is that this is a cube where I would guess upwards of 90% of the matches played are best of one. Right, okay. It's just how most people are playing limited on Arena, right? And that means stuff like Rec Sage is a little bit harder to main deck, right? Whereas if it's a 4/4, at least like it's a bit easier for me to put it in my deck because at least I could attack with it, you know?
No, that's very interesting. Yeah, like that is going to be that is an interesting. I didn't think about the best of one aspect of it, and it is an interesting way of. It's interesting to see how it affects cubes because having effects that are main deckable makes sense. Like the other one I mentioned, the Heritage Reclamation, is very sideboardy, but it's 1 green for an instant. Choose one, destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or exile up to 1 card from a graveyard and draw a card. Like the worst case with that is it cycles, I guess. So it is main deckable basically. Is what I'm saying with it.
It is and it isn't. Right? 2 mana to cycle is still quite bad.
Yes.
I actually don't like that as an inclusion, I think, from them. I think I'd rather have something like Hankerbloom. Because I think to me it's too tempo negative to cycle it. And the nice thing about Hankerbloom, which I think I prefer over Rec Sage. So Hankerbloom is 1 a green 3/2. You can pay 1 and sack it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. The nice thing about that, right, compared to Rec Sage, is I can play my Cankerbloom when there isn't an artifact or enchantment in play, attack with it a couple of times, then when they play something, I can blow it up. Whereas Rec Sage, I need to hold in my hand and it does nothing until they've played an artifact or enchantment, right? And the 4/4 version is like 4/4 is big enough that it's okay to just play it out, right? Whereas you can't just be casting Rec Sage with no targets, really.
That makes sense. Yeah. My feeling is that, I agree with what you're saying. I think their thinking is, well, we can cycle it. Like, so that's kind of why I got it. But I can see that. So a couple other bits. I know we mentioned Reanimator doesn't have the instant speed effects, but it does have every other effect. Like, we go as deep as life, death, necromancy, animate dead, recurring nightmare. Kind of like it. Is it still like? Is it better now? Like, do you because it does still it has all the payoffs in terms of Archon, Grizzlebrand, and Atraxa and such. Like, just quickly on Reanimator, like, is it like? How good do you think Reanimator is right now in the Arena Cube? Is it viable if you want to win a lot of games?
I think if you get like the nuts version, it's still really good. Like, you know, if you get that version where you kind of need specifically Entomb, I think, to have a really excellent Reanimator deck, because it just makes it all so much simpler, right? It makes it into essentially a 2-card combo. You just need to draw Entomb and a reanimation spell, and you get the tutors, and then it's really strong. I have generally not found it to be worthwhile, though, if you're on the like version where you slightly got there and it's a little bit of a package in your fair deck. In that sort of slot, I much prefer it to have, say, a flash and a couple of things to flash than a little reanimation package, because I just need so much more to come together for my reanimates to be good, because it is ultimately like a 3-card combo, right? I need to draw my animate, my discard outlet, and the creature. And people are very good at removing the creatures, so you kind of need the really, really good ones that just end the game. You need that Attrax or that Archon. Once you'll get below that tier, they're a lot less consistent. Like something like Atali can be really good, but it can whiff pretty badly as well. So yeah, my advice with Reanimator is, if it's like, beating you over head open, then absolutely go for it. It can be worth speculating on, but I wouldn't try and force it. I wouldn't that's not somewhere I'm aiming to end up when I start a draft, if I'm really trying
That's
to
interesting.
win.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that is a bit of a difference from Reanimator in other high-powered cubes. So yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. Also, originally, there was no Universes Beyond cards. They're in now. It doesn't. We're not being beaten over the head by Ninja Turtles and the like, but there is a sprinkle of this. It's the ones you expect. It's things like the One Ring. It's things like Bowmasters, very powerful cards, and then a sprinkling of some reskinned Spider-Man cards, and a couple of cards and cards like Badger Mole Cup, very good cards that have gone through standard but are in Universes Beyond sets. There was a few more Final Fantasy cards in version 2. Some of them have come out in version 3. It seems like we're just kind of I think originally it was a selling point. There was no Universes Beyond cards in it, but now it's just it's kind of more on track with the Go Vintage Cube in terms of, this is our pool of cards, we're just working with it now. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm fine with this. We've said before, the Spider-Man cards are still grating to me every time I see them in a pack, but that's fine. I'll live with it. I think we're always going to end up with a Lord of the Rings stuff in. I think they are just kind of cube staples at this point.
Exactly, and they were already on Arena, so it seems quite an obvious little switch. All right, so those are kind of some of the changes. Let's talk about just some more things in terms of how things are looking from a results point of view. In terms of top cards, as we kind of alluded to previously, it was, I'm going to nicely say, Boros heavy. We still have cards like Parallax Wave, Ocelot's Pride, and the greatest cube card of all time, Ajani Nakatal Pariah, high up on the rankings. And again, we're going by win rate in hand. So that's if you see the card at any point during a game. But notably, no Boros card is above things like Time Walk, Ancestral Recall, or Black Lotus. It does feel a little bit like Nature's Healing. Would you go along with that, James?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not surprised we have a few white weenie cards up top. I think a lot of the reason for that is, right, that and this always happens with the 17 land stats when you look at the them for booster draft as well. There's a big premium on cards that just kind of work on their own. You can't put a Johnny Newcastle Pariah in the wrong deck and it would be bad, really, that card is just really strong and it will pretty much always be strong. And it pushes you towards the sort of deck which, again, you can't really screw up that badly. If you're looking at the stats for something like Underworld Breach, you can Underworld Breach so badly. It's a really powerful card, but if you do it wrong, you do it really wrong and your deck will never win,
I feel personally attacked there, James.
Oh, I do it badly all the time. It's not a criticism, but it is a fact. Whereas, you put your Johnny Newcastle Fire and your Ocelot Fire and your Parallax Wave in your deck, and your deck's just going to win a lot of games, it doesn't mean that they're like actually higher power level than the breach stuff. It's just it's a more consistent plan for a lot of people to win more games, you know?
Exactly, and it is always, and we touched on this when we did our big review of the 17 lands data the first time, is that people who are giving their stats to 17 lands are generally spikier because they have opted into opted into giving them their data. Therefore, they're more likely to look at the data and get something from it. So there is it is tilted more towards the players who are trying to spike these a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And this is why, if you look at the stats, the sort of average win rate is normally around 55%, right? It's not 50% as you'd sort of expect by default, because there's a bias there towards the slightly more invested players who have gone to the effort of downloading an extension that saves their data. But I think the top cards look pretty reasonable now. Flage is one I'd particularly like to call out. I feel like this card goes way too late. This is the Boros Titan, I guess you call it, like, you know, the escape.
Like the Euro
deal damage on the way in. Yeah, helix something on the way in. You escape by exiling 5 other cards. This doesn't just go in Boros. I really like Jeskai in this format. I think it's really powerful as a control deck. And because it's not like you need to have red, white on turn 4, you know? And this is just like, it kills something early, the life gain really matters, it keeps you in the game, and then you just have this little inevitability engine, you know? And you definitely have games where you like escape this multiple times, you know, and it's just, it costs you nothing up front, like the Helix for 3 mana is totally fine, and then it just gives you that extra boost of late game power, which is really powerful, actually. I see that card still very late, and it's I think you should prioritize it.
Yeah, I do like Flage is a very, very cool one. Let's talk about some of the other new cards, actually. There's been a bunch of cards that, because I haven't updated my cube in a few months, I haven't played with yet, and I kind of want to know how they've been playing. How have you found Figure of Fable, James? Like, if you've either played with it or had it played against you. Figure of Fable is the Selesnya Figure of Destiny, for those unaware.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I've been impressed with it in white and in green, actually. I think it's in the green version. It's sort of a slightly worse hex trinker, but it's still very powerful. It's still a card I think you should default to running in your green decks. And if you're close to mono white, then it's very, very powerful. It does a lot of the things those decks want to do. It's certainly one of the premium 1-drops in that deck now. The only thing is, you do need quite a lot of white sources. You really want, I think, I would say, like in the region of 12 plus, because obviously, like, you want to be able to level it up pretty quickly. Like, often you want to go play it, level it up in one turn, right, and then level it up again next turn.
No, that's very good. Yeah. It's a card we were both quite hot on in the set review, and good to see that it's putting up some good numbers. Talk to me about Formidable Speaker. This is another one that I just haven't got around to buying just because it's a little bit pricey at time of recording. That's the 2 and a green, 2/4 elf that when it enters, you discard a card, and if you do, you can search your library for a creature card, put it into your hand, so it's a nice one-time survival effect. Then it also has 1 and tap it to untap another target permanent. How's that one been, James?
So I really like this card. I don't think this is a great configuration for it. Just, there's not things like a Hogak. I don't think there's not like really creature combos we're looking to set up.
There's no Hogak. Oh no.
No Hogak is disrespectful. It feels to me like it doesn't have a particularly natural home, I guess, in this cube. Like, I've seen it be okay, but I've never seen it. You know, I've never seen someone really look like they were maximizing it, I guess.
That's fair. I guess there isn't really any creature combos in this deck either, which is where it has like a nice additional place it can run. It's kind of, what is it? effectively finding you either an answer or your 4-drop. Is that kind of what it's doing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that exciting. The only exception, I guess, is Nardu. I've not really played against much Nardu this season, but I think I'm sure it is very good in the Nardu deck, right? It fetches your Nardu and it triggers your Nardu, which is everything you want.
Yeah.
I did try some Pioneer recently, though, which for the first time in a long time, and it's very good there, I can tell you. I realized very quickly the deck I was attempting to play could not beat Greasefang for the life of me, and this does everything you need for Greasefang.
No, that's cool. Last of the new ones that just I haven't had a chance to play with yet, actually, is Ang Swift Survivor. This is the I don't remember if we reviewed this one. It's 1 white and a blue, 2/3 legendary creature, human avatar ally with flash flying. And when it enters, airbend up to one other target creature or spell, and it has waterbending 8 to transform it. I don't remember what waterbending does. But it transforms into a 5/5 reach trample that when it attacks, put a count on each tapped creature you control. Have you played against it, James?
Yeah, I think I've put it in one deck and it was okay. I've played against it a couple of times. It's one of those where you read it and it looks like a spell queller, right? And it isn't a spell queller because airbend, especially late game, feels a bit medium, because quite often they can just cast the spell again right away because it's only 2 mana. Having said that, when you get it in like on turn 3, and it can be a really good tempo play, and the waterbend part is actually real. So waterbend is you can sort of tap to creatures or artifacts to help pay for it.
Right. Okay. Yes. Convoke. Love it. Okay. Convoke-esque.
Yes.
Convoke-esque.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Ang was 3 sets ago. How am I meant to remember what that mechanic does?
Yeah, there's no way to know. That's fine.
We'll never know.
It is kind of horrendous they didn't bother with reminder text for that, I think. But yeah, no, it's fine. It's a threat. It's a little bit disruptive. But it is, I wouldn't be viewing this so much as interaction as it is sort of a tiny bit of a delay,
Okay, no, that's cool. No, I heard when it was printed, some people were talking about it in other formats, like things like Canadian Highlander, which has a nice overlap with Cube. So yeah, interested to see how it had played. Marvelous. There's a few final bits we're going to want to touch on before we finish up for today. There's another edition that I've only played with on Arena, Oracle of the Alpha. One of the things they kind of said that there would be no alchemy cards when the Arena Cube was printed, but I think this was one that people were asking for because it's an alchemy card that isn't. It's alchemy, but it's one of the times where we're doing a powered cube. This makes the power this kind of feels all right in a powered cube. Oracle of the Alpha, for those who don't know, is 2 and a blue for a 2/3. It's an uncommon. Wow, wild. Creature wizard with it's $150. Sorry, I'm going through a range of emotions right now. It is a 2/3 creature bird wizard with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, conjure the power 9 into your library, then shuffle. And when it attacks, scry 1. So conjure, I believe, is the way it works is the power 9 appear in your deck.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not really a card you can play in paper, but they did put it in Mystery Booster anyway. But yeah, I'm a very grumpy old man about alchemy specifically, I think there are not many people more grumpy about alchemy cards than me in general, and I'm actually okay with this one. I think it's cool. It's not... I think people think it's way better than it is. I've spoken with some friends who have played this, and when it works, it could be great. But effectively, what you're doing is you're adding 6 lands to your deck. 3 other very powerful cards, but you're adding mana sources, which isn't always what you want in your deck. Is that fair, James? Yes, and I think if you're just putting it in like your generic blue control deck, that probably will go poorly for you. But I think it's an interesting puzzle to solve as to how you make it good. Because clearly there is potential there, right? You're adding 9 of the most busted cards in the history of Magic to your deck. You can make that into an upside. I think the things I look for if I want to make Oracle work is draw 7s are really, really good because Moxen feel like lands if you're just drawing 1 card a turn. If you're drawing 7 cards, Moxen are not lands, then Moxen are busted, right? Also just tutors, because not so much that you want to tutor for the Oracle, but after you've cast the Oracle, you now have a Time Twister to tutor for, or an Ancestral Recall, or a Time Walk. So you can start sort of building around it like you have the Time Walk in your deck if you can reliably go and find the Time Walk. And just like big card draw, ways to go up lots of cards in a turn. Yeah, then you're making those Moxen into upsides to conjure into your deck rather than a downside. But yeah, it's just one of those cards where like I never get it because I think everyone's taking it super, super high because it reads like a very powerful card. And actually, it is a card with potential, but it is a build around. It's not just say take it and put it in every blue deck.
Seems like it could be fun with Paradoxical Outcome.
That could be pretty spicy. Yeah, I quite like that. Yeah, outcome back my 4 Moxen and my Oracle. I now have more Moxen in my deck. Yeah.
And that sounds fun. Yeah. And of all the arena-only cards, Oracle of the Alpha, I think, fits in this nicely because it's kind of, to an extent, it's one of the reasons why this cube exists because they had already coded the Power 9 onto it when this card was made. Like there's the one that shuffles lightning bolts into your deck. I'm kind of cool with that one, but I think after that, I would be out just because I refuse to learn what more of them do.
Yeah, and that was exactly my problem. It was a lot of the reason why I never used to play the cubes on Arena was they always had a bunch of alchemy cards in, and I was like, I don't want to read what this does. They don't explain what they do. I remember getting really annoyed with ones where it was like, you draft a spell from the spell book, and they all have different spell books, but it doesn't really tell you what the spells are, and it's like, no, I'm gonna go and do something else with my time.
And I believe specifically the spell books can change as well. I think,
oh really? I
think we had that conversation at some point. And I, dear listeners, this is very much a me and James problem. If you like them, cool, crack on. We're not here to yuck anyone's yum, but like for us, that is a barrier to entry that kind of would put us off. But yeah, if you enjoy it, crack on. Are there any other cool and interesting cards or combinations that you've seen in this that you haven't got a chance to play in, like in other cubes, James?
Yeah, so one interesting one they included was Days Undoing. So this is a sort of new take on a Time Twister. It's 2 and a blue sorcery, does the Time Twister thing, shuffle in, everyone draws 7, but then you end the turn. Which is generally really bad, right? Because normally what you want to do with a Time Twister is twist, play a bunch more cards. It's generally very bad to have your opponent draw 7 cards and then pass the turn to them. But there's a pretty spicy combination with the 3 mana Teferi. It's just really brutal. So that's the one where you plus and you can cast sorceries as though they had flash. So you just plus your Teferi, go to their upkeep, Days Undoing, their turn ends, it's back to you. You have your 7 cards and all your mana. So you basically just get a Time Walk for free on top of your
draw 7. On
top of your Time Twister, which is pretty savage, actually. I've had a deck that used that really well. And it sort of made me think about, like, can you go deeper on that and, like, put Quicken in a cube or something and lean into this nonsense?
But that does sound really cool. But I think Teferi Time Raveler is possibly my least favorite card of all time. And again, similarly to some of the other cards, this is very much a user error. It's just, no matter... It just ruins every game I play. Either I'm playing with it or against it. It's just, that each opponent can only cast spells, and each time they could cast a sorcery on top of everything else it does is just it is the epitome of I am not having fun. But that does sound like a cool combination, and it's like if you're doing that against me, I'm at least impressed rather than just running out a planeswalker that annoys me. So that is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
It is. I do understand the Teferi hate. I think it should have said, right, you other players can't cast spells on your turn. I think that would have been fine, right? But it's the cards that just randomly don't work when Teferi is in play. Like, you activate a Shelldock Isle and just nothing happens because you can't cast a spell. Because there's an ability on the stack. Or like spells that make you cast other spells as part of their resolution. I remember in Pioneer at one point, there's the Red Finale was quite popular, but it just randomly doesn't work when you have a Teferi in play. It like lets you cast spells from your graveyard, but you can't because the other spells are resolving, and it's kind of not obvious, right? You just got to learn, like, oh yeah, this Planeswalker just randomly stops this small subsection of cards.
Boo. No, very fair. I guess with all that, James, like, what have you been enjoying in the cube? What have you found yourself drafting a lot?
Yeah, I drafted a bit this time around. I think I did maybe like 10-ish drafts. I found just blue control to be really good. And which doesn't have to be like super heavy blue, but I think blue is an important part because it gives you permission and card advantage, and then you combine that with whatever color feels open to give you access to cheap removal. And that I found to be a pretty potent combination because there just aren't a ton of decks in this cube which don't have a lot of good targets for removal, you know? And when I say control, I'm not like, we're drawing out the game forever. I mean, we're going to win with whatever like powerful 4 or 5 mana card we saw, and we're generally like, 2 and a splash, 3 colors, something like that. Like Jeskai has been really good. Grixis has been really good. Artifacts, I think when it's open is amongst the most powerful things you can be doing. Those, I think it's quite a overdrafted archetype sometimes. Like people are very keen to jump into it, but if you see the signals there, maybe you get sort of an opal or something slightly later than you'd expect. I think it's good to speculate on because when the pieces come together, it's really powerful. I remember the other thing that's been a big overachiever for me, I think, has been Loras. I had a couple of Loras decks which were very good just because of the. I think just loading up on cheap removal is very good. Is still very good, and Loras plays really well with that strategy, right? Because you just start with an extra card in your hand, and with the removal spells you draw out the game, you give yourself time to pay the mana to get the Loras, and then it just becomes this engine. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. You generally, I'm talking about sort of Loras in a more of a control deck. You're probably like 3 or 4 colors, and you're just looking to pay a lot of answers. Play some cheap permanents for going in and out of a graveyard. Stuff like the baubles are really good here. And then you probably want either a couple of ways to start buying back your Loras when they kill it, because it is just going to be that card advantage engine that wins you the game.
No, that's very cool. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to play much of the last season at all, but it's got me to a point where I'm looking at what is the lowest powered / cheapest tablet you can get that will run Arena. I guess last thing before we get out of it is one thing they have changed, which just from a play pattern point of view does seem like a solid thing. They're like, unlike other matches on Arena, with Cube now, they've changed it so that everyone gets an extra timeout at the start. So on Arena, you have like rather than the clock you have on Mitgo, on Arena you get like a number of timeouts, and if you keep, effectively it means that if you don't do anything for a number of turns, you lose. It's to keep games going and keep players progressing the game state. And effectively what they have done is with Cube, they've given everyone a freebie, like a free extra like guaranteed 30 seconds or a minute. I'm assuming because the games are more complicated. Kind of like have you found... James, you're a good Magic player, so maybe this hasn't affected you as much. But like, have you noticed either, I guess, games taking longer or just having more time to make your early decisions, anything like that?
Yeah, this kind of makes sense to me. The only time I sort of feel like this is useful for me is playing Storm specifically, like the Underworld Breach decks. The arena system is not really built for that sort of deck, right? Because the arena system where you have this rope works fine in most games where you play sort of a bunch of turns, and all those turns have like a relatively similar amount of complexity in game actions, right? Where it falls down is where you're playing something like Storm, where you're probably doing nothing for a bunch of turns, and then you're going to do lots and lots of things in one turn, and it can become quite tricky to not time out in that turn. And it's where you would probably ideally rather have something like a chess clock, like they do on Magic Online. But obviously, Arena, they're doing the rope, that's fine, and this seems like a sort of reasonable compromise to make that work. Plus, as you say, people who just haven't played with a ton of these cards before, there's a bunch of really complicated cards in Cube. It kind of makes sense to me to give everyone a little bit more time because, they're getting used to the cards, so that seems fair. The other nice thing with Storm is they have fixed the issue they had in the first season where you had to go into full control mode to use the Lineside Island.
Oh, I do remember. Yes, I do remember. I remember like a PSA from a number of people. Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I think everyone who found that out the hard way found it deeply upsetting. So good job in fixing that. Certainly.
All right, awesome. So yeah. Generally, it does seem pretty positive. We need to keep an eye on. They may. I have not seen when it's going to be back, but as always, we'll be looking forward to it, and we'll be here to bring you the hotness when it does happen. All right, I think that's a good place to end it. James, pleasure, man. Yeah, I thought that was really good. I need to get some more of these cubes into me when it comes back next time.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man.
Awesome. Right, that's going to do it for today. As a reminder, please give the podcast a 5-star review, thumbs up, tell a friend, all that goodness. Until next time, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from James, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.